ordinary.
Stillness.
You lead the way. What do you want to talk about, Steve?
Oh, gosh. Jake, no, that's not how this is supposed to work. It's supposed to just work because you're such a natural conversationalist that you just
No, I'm not. I literally just told you I had something. But
it doesn't pan out with me because, like, we literally just, that's why we're doing this, is because we generally just spark up conversation out of nowhere. So, and it's generally you that start it because you're so enlightened.
Wow.
What? That's not...
You're woke.
I told you, I am woke.
I am. Let me just go by saying I don't think I'll ever be enlightened or... What my therapist... I don't have one anymore, so I probably have deeper issues than when I did. But she called me woke. I'm like, I'm not woke. I'm more aware than I was. But
okay, I'm just going to say this then, Did you fire your therapist because she told you were woke?
Can you fire them?
I don't know. You just said you didn't have her anymore.
Well, I ran out of money. So then I was like...
That's probably nothing to laugh at.
No, it's fine. So then I'm like, well, I guess I'm cured. I have no money.
Well, plus she said you were woke, so that means you're good, right? I'm like...
Well, actually, what happened was I started having questions beyond something a psychotherapist could answer. Like, I was like, okay, but what's the origin of thoughts? Or, like, I'm having these experiences with, like deep reality and past the conceptual mind. What can you explain? And she's like, I have no fucking idea. I'm like, all right. So then I went and got a Buddhist teacher.
Yes.
And now that's David, and we're like friends and stuff. He got me into a lot of this stuff.
Let's just put it this way. You're probably the most enlightened person I know, so...
That says a lot about our environment that we work in.
It does.
It is.
I think it's just a level of awareness that you're at.
Being aware, trying to be aware is kind of difficult. It's going against the grain. With most people are kind of doing the opposite. Where they're trying to numb themselves out without even realize that's what they're doing with their...
Well, I think sometimes, especially during a job, and this is probably terrible to say, but again, I think sometimes that people do that because they feel like if they're too aware, they're going to get lost and not do a good job. Like, sometimes you just have to come in, and that's when you should put your blinders on. Mm-hmm. And, like, I just got to come in and do my job. Like, I'm not going to be worried about, like, whether Fluffy's going to get a hairball or,
Well,
but, it just like popped into my head. I don't know. But you just got to come in and do your job and not worrying about anything else really during that time frame. I mean, I know, it's 8-12 hours, whatever it is, but it's like, I think, and a lot of people should do that, because,
oh my God, the drama that people drag in with them.
You got to just come in and, put your nose to the grindstone and get the job done,
I do agree with that to a certain extent, but being aware isn't about thinking all the time. It's a state of being, I guess. It's not really thinking about the present moment.
Yeah, no. But I was just I was just more generalizing, that I think there's, I think I was putting it more in terms that I would, can work with, and not that I was saying that's what being aware is, but I'm just saying that I think that most people that they just need to, do it that way.
I think there's like so Wu Wei is a term I'm going to throw at you.
Wu Wei?
Wu Wei, or the flow state, or Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, right? Yes. Have you seen Bruce Lee movies?
Yes.
They're so over the top.
Yes, they're awesome.
I've never watched one until recently. I watched as I Enter the Dragon.
Yes.
It's like, there's like one point where he's like decoding this alarm system and there's a snake on the ground and he steps on the snake and the alarm goes off and all these guys run in and he's like fighting all these guys. And then it pans in on his face and he's like making these ridiculous noises. And it's so cool.
He was awesome.
But it's about, and he talked about this. This was his philosophy for fighting. It's being with knowing what you're doing as you're doing it. Without thinking about it, you're just in the flow.
Right.
So when you're like chopping something, or cooking, for sure. Yep. You're in it's like dancing. You're in this state of not hyper-awareness, because that's not what mindfulness is. It's not hyper-awareness. It's a different sort of awareness where you're not lost in thought so much. You're runner's high is the best example I can think of. Is you're really in the moment, and you're like people like or adrenaline junkies. They like that kind of stuff, like because when you're tight roping across a canyon, two buildings, you can't think of anything else other than where you are right now.
I wouldn't think so. No,
I haven't tried it yet.
Other than the fact that you're scared shitless. But
maybe that's not the edge they meet. But so the flow state, I think, is a good one to reach. It feels good to kind of Wu Wei. It's a Taoism term. It's not Buddhism, but it's a similar kind of idea where I think you can reach that state even in conversation. When you're not planning what you're going to say next, you're just there listening and you're kind of in the flow of the talk. It feels good. And you're kind of just not even, you might be thinking, but you're not clung to the thoughts. You're just kind of like, that's kind of cool. So I think there's a danger of that versus people going into work and going into autopilot, which they're doing whatever, but they're still just thinking about whatever to distract themselves from where they are, which people do all the time.
Yes.
I mean, how many people are like, oh, Monday, or it's thank God it's Friday, and then at the same time they're like, where'd the month go? Fucking that's where. The whole time you're there during the week, you're waiting for the weekend. And then the weekend comes, it comes by really quickly, and then
it goes by really
then you're
quickly.
back. Then you're back and you're like, oh, another week, and then you're like, where'd the month go?
Jake, I think you're onto something.
I don't want to judge people for doing that. I've done it before. Well, when I was a baker.
A huge chunk of the workforce obviously does that, you know.
And
me being one of them, you know.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, since,
But
you're right, though.
This is called ordinary stillness. I mean, think of the ordinary moments. We have way more ordinary moments than extraordinary. So why not be there for the ordinary, or else we're going to miss our whole life, because it's like just waiting for... It's like waiting for Christmas, and you don't care about...
Where's that? Why is that not a quote? I want that. That should be written down.
What would I say?
You'll have to listen back, because it was something. And if we're not there for the ordinary, you know, there's more ordinary parts of our lives than there is extraordinary parts of our lives. So if we're not there for the ordinary parts, we're gonna miss half of our, you know, way more than half of our lives. You got to figure out how to make that a quote.
I'll look. I think
make it a meme.
Do you know what memes are?
Sure.
I'm still working on it. TikTok. I'm like, what is a TikTok? I don't. What's a Vine? I'm still figuring that out, and it's gone.
I was going to say, those aren't even around anymore.
I know.
TikTok took over.
Or Snapchat. Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Don't get me started on Snapchat.
Okay, we'll divert that topic. But yeah, and it is difficult to be present during certain times. When I'm in the call center and I'm just sitting on my ass answering the phone, I feel like a monkey. Like, just like I feel so useless. And there are times where I just want to, like, you know, zone out. And your mind can, like, back to the mind being a drug dealer, your mind can be like, hey, let's, like, fantasize about the weekend because this sucks.
Right.
So you're like, yeah. But then when you come into the present moment, there is a lot more detail there that is kind of fascinating, which is what you realize when I spin on the iPad. I don't deserve to talk anymore.
I'm just glad it's your iPad.
That's one of my girlfriend's pet peeves, is someone spitting on them when they're talking, like spitting up food.
Yeah.
I'm like, shit, I do that all the time. But my opinion is that pet peeves don't bother you when it's someone you love. Because my girlfriend could chew loudly and I wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Or slamming doors. She doesn't slam doors. She's a very quiet human, but when someone slams the door, I'm like, can you not?
Was there a reason for that?
Yeah. Doors are meant to be closed softly. I forgot what we were talking about. Being present. So I'm kind of like...
Ordinary stillness.
So I'm scared. Back to death. I've told you I'm scared.
Back from what? 2 weeks ago? Okay. Fair enough.
I'm not so scared about... I think, okay, my whole being is scared of death. It's designed to do that. But I'm not as worried about it as other people. I'm more worried about not living a good life or a full life. And that includes, like, not being present for my life. I'm scared of laying on my deathbed and be like, holy shit, I was never even aware of the birds or the sky or, you know.
But you are.
I am, but I'm so critical of myself. I'm like,
you are so critical of yourself. You always bring up the damn birds, but yet you told a bird to be quiet out here just half an hour ago.
Because when you're recording, the birds need to shut up.
Why? What would be wrong with a little bird tweet in the background of our podcast? Absolutely nothing.
You can't answer your own question.
Yes, I can. It was more rhetorical, so I can't answer it.
I had some answers. Right? Because a podcast is about the audio. In fact, I want to use a mic, but it hasn't come in yet. Well, it came in, but the adapter hasn't come in
You
yet.
had a mic and said it sucked.
Yeah, that was a cheap mic. I need a good mic, which I have now.
So if we had a mic, could we record outside?
No.
So we can never record outside?
No. And
why?
You and Jamie, like we can eat while recording. Like, no, we can't. Because people, if they're listening to like just a podcast on Spotify, they can hear like little rustling in the background or whatnot. The quality just goes way down because they think like, oh, these guys can't even understand what they're saying. There's like,
well, you were gonna say these guys aren't professional, and we're not. So I mean,
I know.
I like how you.
I guess it's the inner artist in me.
That's okay.
I want to provide.
I respect that. I respect it.
In the medium I'm using, I want to provide a high-ish quality. I'm not going to buy a like $200 mic and get a recording studio, but I want to provide a decent quality experience for somebody's like sense perception.
But couldn't you go through afterwards while you're editing and edit out the background noise?
Fuck that. That's a lot of work. And no, if we're talking while there's a background noise, the two are too close together that you can't really... Trust me, Michelle and I recorded in a coffee shop. We're like, yeah, we can edit this out. And I was listening to it like, this would be a nightmare to edit out. Like, there's people right next to us talking about like Jesus or something. I don't know.
All right.
Topic.
Enough about that. Sorry.
What was the topic of this podcast?
Death.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was.
No,
that's where we got. You just jumped back into it for being present. Oh, right. No, how we got to it was because you were afraid of being on your deathbed and not being able to listen to the birds enough because you're always wanting to listen to the damn birds, except for when we're doing a podcast.
Got an addiction, all right.
Okay.
All right, there is a danger of being addicted to stillness. There's people that they will spend their lives, I've taught about this, in a monastery, which is nothing wrong with that. But if your intention is, I just want to be present all the time, well, good luck, because no matter what, life gets chaotic, and you got to be able to, back to Wu Wei, go with the flow.
Yeah.
So go with the flow of chaos, and that's when you have 5 stressors under your belt. Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Right.
But you got to learn to dance with the stress. Ride the waves.
Wow, we're getting groovy now. We're dancing, we're riding waves.
It's true.
It's great.
Life is a dance. I mean, Alan Watts says, like, he's a philosopher. He says that one of the greatest realizations is that it's not work but play. Like, our jobs, technically speaking, are a way of, like, we're actors in this role that we set up. We get paid for it, but we're still just all human.
Yeah.
But we're like, oh, I'm a production manager. Awarded production manager. I don't think most things go to your head, but a lot of people, their title goes to their head. But that's a different topic, but...
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was going to say, what do you mean by go to your head? Like
look down on other people that are like...
see, no, that's...
You're just a dishwasher.
That's ridiculous. There's, as we've talked about, there's a sense of pride that should go along with something like that, but,
Pride's all right.
But it's not like it's everlasting. I mean, it's just like, hey, that was cool.
You should be proud of your work.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, that's, of course, I don't know. I've never been like that anyway, so.
No, me neither. I'm kind of the opposite, where I'm like, not good enough. But I'm working on it. It's a pendulum sometimes. You can go from...
Mr. Circle of Gratitude again.
Yeah, but then you've seen how I receive rewards. Not well. I just kind of like go in my shell and tell them to stop talking to me. But it's a pendulum. You can go from self-doubting to arrogant and back to self-doubting. I've seen people, I won't say who, do that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. But I think it's hard for me. I've always been... I can't say I've always been humble, because that's one of the most unhumble things you could say.
Why?
Because you don't announce that you're humble. You just are. You don't have to talk about it. The minute you start talking about it...
This is what we're doing, though. Talking.
I know,
so
I know.
I'm like,
I guess I'm not... I just understand humility. That's a better word. I think humility is...
That sounded arrogant.
Humility is a good thing. Like, I've been knocked down a few pegs sometimes.
What's the difference between humility and being humble?
Oh, God, that's hard.
So you're okay with saying I have humility, but you're not okay with saying I'm humble.
This is back to like, how are you doing versus how's it going?
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah.
I think someone who is humble is someone who has faced humility. I think. And
Wow.
Your face.
I just became woke again.
Getting sweaty from this.
Whew. It's warm up here, yeah.
That too. Well, I think humility is a eye to eye level, where rather than you're below someone or they're above you, you're kind of like, hey, we're both human and we're in this together, which is a nice point to reach with somebody.
Humility is between more than you or humble. Being humble is about you.
No, I think humble is just another word for humility. I don't know. I knew these words. When I learned about compassion, I had to look it up. Because I was like, what is that word mean?
Yeah.
And equanimity and all these words that they use in the East.
Yeah.
In the West, I just learned about like the potato famine and the Dalai Lama and shit. I was like, I don't even know who that is. I mean, I know they cloned a sheep named Dolly.
Dolly?
Did they name the sheep Dolly?
Yes.
Yeah. But I knew more about that than the Dalai Lama.
D-O-L-L-Y, not however the Dalai Lama, D-A-L-I, D-A-H-L-I, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to spell it.
I spell it wrong when I Google it all the time. I'm better now.
What is it?
Dalai Lama?
Yeah.
Fuck. D-A-L-A-I.
D-A-L-A-I?
Yeah, that's Dolly. No. And then Lama.
2 L's, A, M, and A?
I think, but I don't want to like misspell the Dalai Lama's name to represent an actual farm animal.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you under pressure.
It's okay. I'm gonna keep that in.
Edge.
We're getting somehow off topic, but humility is like, so when someone's suffering, you're kind of like with them suffering, you feel their pain, versus someone who arrogant helping someone with suffering. They're like on top of this well and the person's down in the well and you're like, I'll pray for you.
right, yeah.
It's so true. Or someone who's self-doubting is like, you think you're in pain on my life. And then like it's...
Oh, jeez. Yeah. We got a few of those.
It's a one-up contest of misery.
Yes.
So being in the middle is great because you can relate to them in a like, maybe you don't even know what to tell them and that's okay. To be like, oh, that hurts. I don't know what to say to you.
Sometimes you just have to listen.
That's genuine. Yeah. Yeah. And that I'm learning that's like key. I don't have to know what to say. Just deep listening is like.
Yeah. Even if it's in the middle of a hallway, you know, it's like.
Oh, I don't know if I can bring up on the podcast. Someone we both know, I asked how he's doing over a recent loss. And then I stood there and listened for like 10 minutes. And I was like,
yep.
This was a bad time to ask because I had to go to the bathroom. That was before I had to go to the bathroom and open up that can of worms. But I was glad that, I was actually listening. And you're not listening to get, congratulations, you listened. Like, you don't care what...
Because you're compassionate.
Moments of it. Working on it. I guess I'm humble.
Everything's a work in progress with you.
Yeah. It's true.
Well, it is with all of us, I know, but you're more aware of it, so...
Well, like I think I've said before, that building awareness includes being aware of your neurotic tendencies, your selfish nature, and, like, your times of not paying attention. Mm-hmm. You see how much you're a hypocrite. Kind of talk about being humiliated. That does it.
Yeah.
That's like I have no right to judge. I do that kind of attitude.
You're right, and moments of hypocrisy are hard to like sometimes see as it's happening too.
Yeah, I think I don't want to say everyone's a hypocrite, but that's a pretty fair statement. Everyone has moments of being a hypocrite because they're like, "Oh, I would never do that," and then you're doing it. I laugh at myself when I see them doing it. I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like I cut this person off. Like, how can I?
It'd be like me, like, being in the middle of the aisle at the grocery store, with my card all crooked, reading the mustard label,
I was going to say ketchup.
Not caring about anybody else.
So, do you think you have some flow, this is going back, but flow to golf? Like you're in the zone?
Yes, absolutely.
Is it because of beer?
No, not always. No, it's just, I I guess it's Wu Wei, maybe. I don't know. But it's definitely a flow. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, and there is a flow to it because it's like, you get up as you're addressing the ball, you're concentrating. You're concentrating and you're thinking about whatever, or you're just whatever. It's a feel, and then you hit the ball and you're like, oh, that was a good shot, and then you go about, talking with your people who you're playing with and you're shooting the shit and having a good time. And then, you're over the ball again. And then it's,
It's, I think it's Van Gogh that he said when he's painting, the minute I think my painting's ruined, it's like some commentary fucks up your game.
Yeah.
That's the flow state.
That's a true point.
Yeah.
I have said that to my son before, and and it's good advice. Is just don't think about it.
Yeah.
You can go up there and just, well, I mean, you know what you're doing, but when you go up there and you're worried about, like, if we're still relating this to golf, you're relating, you're up there concerned about where your feet are and, how you're gripping the club and, there's all these factors that go into a golf swing to make it a good one. And if you're really thinking about all that, you're probably going to screw it up.
Yes.
Because it's just like, and I find I definitely do that. If I just go up and, you have your pre-shot routine that you do, then you go up, set up, blah, 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 and you make your shot and choose, you're going to be okay. But as soon as you start, like, thinking something like, oh, I gotta move this foot back a little bit, I gotta do that. Like, forget it. Your shot's screwed.
And it's the same, I think the same with conversation. If you're trying to plan what to say next, you kind of fuck it up.
Yeah.
And you're not actually listening to what they say. You're not taking it in. So I guess, like, in golf, you're taking in everything, all the factors without even thinking about it. You're just soaking in the present moment. Cool. I mean, bowling, I get strikes when I don't try.
Right.
Like, if I worry about the outcome, then I fuck up. Darts, too. Like, I'm horrible at darts, but I do better if I don't think about it.
Right.
You just kind of go,
it's, again, like Van Gogh said it best, apparently.
Yeah, I might have not been Van Gogh, but he seemed unstable enough to say something like that.
Yeah. He started thinking about it and cut his ear off, so, I mean, whatever. I don't know.
To bring some... Too many voices in my head. I got cut off my ear. That's a good... I tell you about the lady that cut her arm off?
No. Maybe we should save that for the next one.
Anyway, there's an actual science to all this. Don't mind me if I'm repeating myself, but there's a default mode network in the brain, and there's a task positive network in the brain. And only one of the two can be triggered at the same time. This is different than the approach in aversion network. This is a whole different set of neurons. Basically, when we're set to do nothing, most humans will start thinking of the story of me. They will think about themselves and worry about, the future and the past. It's still thinking about yourself. That might be why some people are so self-absorbed, is that network's really cranked up.
Yep.
And that network, the other network is called task positive, and it's when you're in the flow state. So when you're golfing and really paying attention, that default, all that chatter and worrying about your game or who you are, what you're doing, is not triggered, or not, trigger's not the right word, but not flipped on.
Activated.
Yeah. So in meditation, you're activating the task positive network without doing anything. Technically, you're not doing anything, and you're like watching the default mode network turn on, and then you're kind of flipping it off and coming back to your breath.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of doing something, just light effort. You're watching your breath. But you're just paying attention to being alive, and that when that becomes a habit, then the default mode network becomes less of a habit, and then you ruminate less, and you worry less about who you are and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, my social anxiety has gone down a lot, also because I worry less about what people think of me.
Right.
It's like, I mean, God knows what they're thinking. I mean, they're probably worried about what we think of them. But B is like, who fucking cares? Like,
yeah.
Everyone has that whole TV set mentality. Everyone has their own projection of what their reality looks like. If you're going to try to control everyone's projection of how they view you, it's exhausting.
Oh, you're screwed.
Yeah. Like, why? Why do we care?
Because everybody's going to have a different perception.
Yeah, even if you're doing something good, someone will be like, egotistical asshole.
Right.
Looking Mother Teresa over there, like... What do they think?
Why does he think he's so special?
Yeah, Mr. Ward. When I got like the third award in the kitchen, I'm like, Colleen, stop. They're going to start a lynch mob. Like, everyone in the kitchen, they're clapping.
Like
underneath.
Like how Jake dropped you at 3 awards now?
I did. Well, Pillar, never mind. I'm not going
to... This is how it goes, though. You're absolutely right, though. And people, this is how people are, because this happened to me, too.
They won't be happy for you.
Somebody came in and saw my award.
Yeah.
And said, oh, what's that? And I was like, oh, President's Award, you know. Oh. Good for you, they said. I got a written warning I could put on the wall. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what do you say to that? Like, it's, hey, this isn't about you. It's about me. And B, whatever. I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, it's like, seriously, you know, it's like.
It's called the Jealous God Realm.
Yeah.
Which is a cool name for it. It's a perspective of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's thinking that other people's happiness will take away from your own.
Yeah.
Complete bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's what some people do. They're like, oh, I'm underappreciated. But they get appreciation.
Yeah.
That's why I don't get it.
Right.
It's hard to deal with. I mean, then for me, I the people pleasing kicks in. I'm like, oh, you're right. I should hide this award.
Yeah,
I have no right to
No.
You know, like,
yes, yeah, it's ridiculous.
I feel bad. I'm like, why? There's no reason to feel bad in that scenario. But
I didn't feel bad, but I was like, I thought it was a bit of a ridiculous, like, you know, thing to say. But
it's like when someone gives you good news and you don't care because you're like, well, fuck them, they're happier than me. It's like a contest.
I know.
It's the metric system I talked about.
It's another part of my edge, I guess, is that
ungrateful. Not ungrateful.
When people react like that,
mm-hmm.
you know,
or when people like, this is a whole other topic, but when people say something bad has happened in their life and someone else is like, oh, that's so like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, and they're really like pretending to comfort them, but on the inside they're like, my life's not as bad as theirs, and they go around telling everyone about that person's life.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't care. If you cared, you wouldn't go around
I know, exactly.
advertising someone's misery. It's what's it in Buddhism? It's called it's an interesting slogan. It's like, don't wear someone else's misery as your own happiness, something like that.
Sounds appropriate.
Yeah, it's like, don't, and there's also don't kick someone when they're down.
Yes,
like or don't wait in ambush. That's another slogan.
I don't know that one.
It's basically like, you see someone's life falling apart, and when it finally falls apart, you're like, I fucking told you. That's not okay to do.
Oh, I got you.
I've done it, but it's hard not to, because you're like, I saw it a mile away. Like, yeah, but they were, there's a lot going on in their life with that. They didn't obviously see it, or else they would have changed direction.
Right.
But yeah, happiness is within, as we've said. So your happiness won't take away from someone else's. In fact, it kind of amplifies. Like Carrie Ann, being around her, she's so joyful and whistly.
Yes.
And that just boosts everyone else's mood.
Well, not everyone's, but yes.
Well, except certain people that are the ones we're talking about.
Right.
Can you stop being so joyful?
Yeah.
You're bringing me down. Then there's the opposite.
It's more out of their comfort zone than bringing them down. It's just not their comfort zone happiness.
Yeah. I've been there. Depression will do that to you. But there's also people that they drag themselves into work, and then you don't want to be near them because it's just like this vibrations of misery.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, and they're like, how you doing? I'm like, oh man, I don't want to answer that because then I'm going to have to ask you how you're doing, and I know,
and I don't want to know.
And then they answer you, and then they're like, fuck.
Oh.
Like, it would be better if I wasn't here. Like, okay, sorry you're here. I'm here too, though. So I mean,
right.
And I'm not miserable.
Misery loves company, though.
Yeah, and I've been on both sides of all those things I've just ranted about. I mean, I've watched someone fall and been like, "Oh, my life's not that bad."
Yeah,
I've been entertained by it. I've gone around. I've gossiped about all these things. That's why I say I'm not humble, because I've done all these things that are shitty.
But you've learned from it.
Kind of. I still find myself that awareness.
Well, sure.
You kind of. It's like going down a path and you start to go right, and you're like in the woods with ticks and shit, and you're like, go left, and you have to readjust yourself. It's not like I'm always, this is back to equanimity, but I'm not always like, a good person. I go too far right and become an asshole, and then I go back to the center.
It's because it's a constant learning procedure.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm always growing.
Yes.
You know, I'm a little hypercritical about it, but I am kind of growing into my mold, I guess.
Moving into the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes back to karma, where each day you're planting seeds for your tomorrow.
Yes.
So if I'm learning to gossip less or care less about people's opinions, which might be a forever thing, I think that's human nature. Some of that tribal kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
If you don't fit in your tribe, I mean, if you go to work and everyone hates you, do you really want to work there?
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah.
But is that a them problem or a you problem?
Doesn't matter. Get the fuck out of there. You're going to solve 10 people's perception of you?
No.
No, I don't think so.
That's just it.
It's a headache. Yeah.
Right. I got to go to work.
Yeah. Okay, calm down.
That was good.